Good morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where in the world you are joining us from. And thank you for joining us for this third day of the Outsource to LAC Virtual Week 2020. For the past 9 years, Outsource to LAC has created a space for technology service companies from across Latin America and the Caribbean to network, to explore business opportunities through our matchmaking system, and learn about the latest trends in technology directly from the companies who are pushing the envelope in the different areas of technology. Today's session will be conducted entirely in English, so we invite you to check out the interpretation button on the bottom. La sesión de hoy será en inglés, así que los invitamos a utilizar el botón de interpretación simultánea que encontrarán en la parte de abajo de la ventana. Lastly, we invite you to share your questions for today's presenters on the chat. The team will be reviewing them, and we will make sure some of them are shared at the end of the presentations. As you know, today's special session is titled Israel and Latin America and the Caribbean, an Alliance for Innovation. It's an honor to introduce today's presenters to you. Ana Maria Rodriguez, Vice President for Sectors at the Inter-American Development Bank. Eugene Kandel, Chief Executive Officer at Startup Nation Central. Daniela Kandel, Senior Director, Innovation Bridges at Startup Nation Central. Fabricio Perti, Manager of the Integration and Trade Sector at the Inter-American Development Bank. And last but not least, Irene Arias, Chief Executive Officer of IDB Lab. Thank you all for joining us today. Ana Maria and Eugene will start us off with some opening thoughts. Ana Maria, welcome, and you have the floor.
Thank you very much. First, I would like to give a very warm welcome to all Latin American, Caribbean, and Israeli attendees that are joining us today. So, bienvenidos and welcome. And I would like to thank the government of Israel and Startup Nation Central for the co-organization of this session. So, I would say bienvenido, welcome, and shalom, shalom. With an economy with about $6 trillion and a population of over 640 million of citizens, the region in Latin America and the Caribbean has a huge market, and as such, a possibility of enormous potential for Israeli companies to explore. And on the other hand, Israeli innovation and expertise are highly regarded by nations around the world, and Latin America and the Caribbean countries are not an exception. So this is great to be here, and we are putting together these two groups. Today, I wanted to talk about particularly three things. One, opportunities the Latin American and Caribbean ecosystem represent for Israel. The second, the challenges of our future is facing and the crucial role of innovation and digital transformation in that context. And third, the framework of trust and institutional alliance between the IDB group and Startup Nation Central, and how that's provide a very enabling setting for this conversation first, and for the, I hope, new opportunities in the future. So going into opportunities, the first thing that if you want, I want you to remember something is Latin America is a land of opportunities. And it has been in terms of trade. Latin America and the Caribbean and Israel have already created a very beneficial relationship in business. And as of last year, bilateral trade amounted close to $4 billion. And Israeli exports to a region where, particularly in Brazil, Mexico, Argentina, Chile, and Colombia. And also imports from Latin America, particularly from Mexico, Brazil, Argentina, TNT, Paraguay, and Chile. But apart from the trade, also, there's such a huge potential in terms of global digital services. Let's talk, for example, in AgTech. Latin America is a world leader in food production, accounting for 14% of global agriculture. Yes, but also if you see into Israel, the things that are coming about, the new technologies in AgTech in Israel, and the transformation that Israel has been made based on AgTech are very promising and interesting for Latin America and the Caribbean. Let me mention another one, cybersecurity. The global cybersecurity market has projected to grow about 20%. And one thing that we're learning on the COVID is cybersecurity becomes absolutely critical, not for the critical platforms, but for everything that we do. So cybersecurity is an important area in which Israel actually has been working with the IDB for a long time, and where we know that learning from Israel to service Latin America and the Caribbean and bring the companies from Israel to Latin America and the Caribbean would be great. Another one that also is brought by with a big attention is telemedicine. And in Latin America, the Caribbean, the market is expanding very much and it's expected to be double in the next 5 years. And of course, fintech. Within the fintech spectrum, the degree of sophistication in terms of financial services for Latin America and the Caribbean user is yet to be explored. We're back, there's a lot of things new, but there's a lot of things to move ahead, as we know that 3/4 of the population in the region remain unbanked or underbanked. And again, a lot of work. So if you would think about the startup and innovation ecosystem in Latin America, we are doing something that are very interesting at the time that I think will be of huge interest from us into the Israel companies. Today, 14 Latin American and Caribbean countries rank in the top 100 global startup ecosystem, headed by Brazil, which has the most mature ecosystem, but followed by Chile, Argentina, Mexico, and Colombia. There is also a strong network of incubators in Latin America and the Caribbean that support startups in the early stages, providing funding, consulting, and networking services. So we have talked about digital services active in cybersecurity, in telemedicine, in fintech, and in the startups. So this is the potential that we have. This is the land of opportunities that we have to explore. Let me talk about then the future. I think that is very important. There's a land of opportunities and the future is now and the future is digital. There is no doubt that the COVID-19 crisis will significantly accelerate the shift to digital and fundamentally shake up the business landscape. It is obvious that the future is going to be now digital, and Latin America, the Caribbean is going to be part of this reality. The digital transformation creates new opportunities for businesses and people to engage in and benefit from innovation and international trade. Therefore, this calls for greater efforts to improve the internet infrastructure and connectivity of the countries within our region and also bring all the services associated with it. So we have a land of opportunities. We have the future now setting the digital tone of growth and change. But then you have to develop relationship based on solid regional network knowledge and trust. And then we have talked about the growing importance of the relationship between Israel and Latin America and the Caribbean countries. In this context, and I wanted to emphasize that the IDB group plays an important role as a key partner for strengthening these ties, to bridging this tie. The IDB now is the main sources of multilateral financing for economic, social, and institutional development in Latin America and the Caribbean. This, we hope, represents an opportunity for Israeli companies to participate in IDB-funded government procurement processes. But moreover, part of the IDB group is the IDB Invest, and the IDB Invest supports private sector and state-owned enterprises through loans, equity, investments, and guarantee. And third, part of the IDB group, the IDB Lab mobilized financing, knowledge, and connection to co-create solutions with the private sector that solves systemic development problems in our region. And I have to say, particularly to this group that is today, we have our cross-sector initiatives such as the Connect Americas and this today Outsource to LAC Business Forum that provides a place to materialize such transactions. We know that the alignment of public and private strategies is without doubt a necessary condition for success. This is why we will also continue forging high value-added partnerships at both regional and multilateral levels within the public and the private sector. Our sustained and fruitful work with Startup Nation Central is one of the perfect examples of how we're trying to build opportunities on solid ground for our countries. So on closing, I think we have a land of opportunities, we have the digital reality without us, and you have in the IDB group a partner that facilitates those spaces for these connections to happen. Because I think working together, the opportunities for all are improved. Global solutions and partnerships will make us all collectively and individually better. Global partnerships bring us exceptional possibilities globally and nationally. And I insist in both the global and nationally, because I remember Golda Meir when she talked about internationalism. Global partnerships do not diminish the possibilities of individual nations. On the contrary, it multiplies them. So using what she said at that time, getting the richness of an orchestra don't mean the end of violence. So let us work together for the benefit of our countries. Now, I'm honored to pass the floor to Eugene Kendall, somebody from whom I have learned a lot, I admire a lot, and is an activist of innovation and the creation of collective growth. Without Eugene, thank you very much for being here. Let's bring this land of opportunities to the digital realm, and always remember that the IDB is an excellent partner in this endeavor. To you, Eugene.
Thank you, Ana Maria, and thank IDB for the opportunity to host it. I'm looking at the number of participants, it just crossed 515. This is quite amazing. Thank you so much for opportunity to speak in front of such an audience and even co-host it together with you. This is, you were talking about the orchestra. Actually, the existence of the well-tuned orchestra makes violins and every other instrument even more important than less. So it's actually, they magnify its importance. I actually want to start from the point that, Ana Maria, you made about the trust and the connectivity between people. You know, there are hundreds of thousands of Israelis that have strong connection to Latin America and Caribbean, both in terms of culture and the language. There are, some of them were born there, some of them, their parents were born there. Many of them are completely addicted to the soap operas and study Spanish to understand them. And many, many of them are traveling around your beautiful countries after they finish their military service for 6 months to a year at a time. So this is like a very, very well-known and admired destination for many Israelis. And so they come back with admiration for the culture, which is in some ways very similar to Israeli culture. It's warm, it's family-oriented, fun-loving. You know, all the Latin American and Caribbean dances are extremely popular in Israel. So there's a definitely natural connection with that. But there is a distance, of course, and so economics, we know from research that economic and trade are influenced by distance. And so the distance, as well as the differences in business cultures, brought us to the fact that the trading between Israel and the entire continent there is not where it should be in both directions. And so there is which is an opportunity to actually improve things, and we believe that we can. And the area that is mostly underdeveloped, I think, is exactly the area that Ana Maria was talking about, which is the area of technology on both sides, by the way. And so I believe that the partnership that we're talking about, that we've learned to cherish over the last 2 years, that developed it first slowly and then really rapidly over the last 6 to 8 months. We are very, very happy to have this partnership with IDB, because we believe that it can play a key role in bridging this gap. Now, Israel, as a small country with basically no manufacturing base, was very small manufacturing base, very small consumer base. The only way that the big ideas that are emerging here, or the interesting technologies, they can really gain traction and become big ideas is if they implement it in much larger markets. And of course, before they can benefit us, they have to benefit somebody else much, much more, because the application of technology is firstly benefiting its users. So in that sense, Israel is a perfect partner, because it doesn't want to manufacture everything at home, because we just don't have the capacity. And so we are much happier than maybe other larger countries with technological capabilities to share both our capabilities, as well as develop partnerships with ecosystems in other countries. And we've been doing some of that through various projects that Daniela may be going to discuss. So as Ana Maria stated, Israel has a very strong technological base and a variety of deep tech applications to various fields, whether it's cyber, whether it's fintech, ag, food tech, etc. But the biggest one that I think got a huge boost because of COVID-19 is actually digital health, which is even bigger part than what Ana Maria mentioned. It's telemedicine. Maybe I think that you have meant digital health because it's a wider variety of things. And in fact, we realized that digital health, where is merging data and analysis and insights into the healthcare system on a variety of ways, is the only way to really effectively deal with pandemics. It's a real effective way to create access for people in large countries and dispersed countries to healthcare. And it's the only way to reduce the cost of healthcare so they don't rise linearly with population. So we think that the biggest impact of COVID and the changes in how we work and interact and consume various areas of our lives is going to have the biggest effect on digital healthcare. And we believe that Israel is a very, very strong position to do that. And we believe that with the IDB help and with the IDB partnership, we can actually bring this to both the technologies, but also the business models that are suitable for LAC context to actually make a big impact on the people in the region. But there's another area that I think is manifested in the very name of this event, of this week-long event. This is outsourcing to LAC. And I think it's not surprising because in the near future, both the United States, the European Union, as well as the other large countries are going to start shortening their supply chains, both in food, but also in pharma and various other essential components. And so you would see a contraction into the regions that are either within the country or near the country. And so that seems to us, from our analysis, that LAC region has a great potential to gain a lot of manufacturing capacity or manufacturing investments because of the attractiveness of the human capital, the reasonable cost of labor, and the proximity to various large centers, whether it's smaller countries to larger countries, as well as to United States. However, these systems, these manufacturing systems will have to be much more flexible, more efficient, and more resilient. That's the lesson that we learned from COVID. And the resiliency and flexibility and efficiency can only come from digitization of manufacturing and introduction of really real-time supporting systems for decision-making, which are actually quite strong in Israel as well. So this is something that I would strongly encourage both our Israeli companies as well as LAC companies and institutions to think about how we can help in that process, which will take place over the next 5 years. So we actually, SNC, Startup Nation Central, tried to think about connecting to Latin American Caribbean region for a while, but we didn't have a serious partner to really be to rely on. And so we are extremely happy to have the entire IDB group as a partner. The relationship has been welcoming, business oriented, and the people very open and impact driven. So we are extremely happy. And so I would like to thank President Moreno, Ana Maria, you, and Irene and Fabrizio and everybody else, everybody on the team, for being so open and welcoming this partnership. We definitely, on our end, are looking forward. We see our two organizations as basically two pillars of a very, very long transatlantic bridge. going from this part of the world to your part of the world. And we are hoping to create together a very intensive and significant traffic in both directions on this bridge, delivering large positive impact both on LAC as well as on Israel. Thank you so much. By the way, and I was supposed to introduce Daniela, your turn.
Thank you, Eugene. Hello, everyone. And I cannot stress enough how happy we are with this partnership. I hope you can see my screen well. What I wanted to do for us really quickly is run through the story of Israel Innovation and the story of this partnership and how it's been built and where this comes in the actual opportunities on the ground today. So first, and many of you know this, Israel is really very well known for its innovation. But there's a part of that, so the innovation or this innovation ecosystem that we're talking about is actually divided into two main capacities. It's the entrepreneurial capacity, the ability to build companies in a way that's scalable, that can grow in that exponential way that we're used to looking at startups. And the second side of that is the innovation capacity, the ability to create new things. And what I think is very unique about Israel is the fact that our innovation is technology-based. Our entrepreneurs are engineers, are computer scientists. They come from technology. They do not come from industry. And that's why in such a small country, what you actually find is a group of brilliant engineers with brilliant ideas, with no understanding how they fit into anything. Or at least we're getting better at that. But the business side of things, the understanding of different markets, at this point, Israel is very comfortable in the US, of course, but Latin America, and not only Latin America, India, Africa, even Europe, that is relatively close, business culture and understanding of the business needs. You know, Israel is no financial, we don't have a financial center. We're not a financial center of any kind. We have a basic banking system that is quite decent, but nothing to be proud of, nothing to support such a strong fintech industry in Israel. And what's beautiful about the fact that our innovation comes from the technology and it's agnostic to the field. So there are core capabilities that kind of mesh together also due to the size of our ecosystem. Our entire ecosystem is about 300,000 people. That's it. That's what's running this ecosystem here in Israel. That means that by educating the market, helping them understand the actual market challenges, the actual industry challenges, actually we find that these companies actually pivot, utilize their technologies for real business needs, and can adapt to a variety of circumstances, a variety of industries. And so in Israel, not only do we have a variety of solutions from fintech to agri-tech, utilizing in many cases the same technologies, we actually have this kind of flow of knowledge that is moving from these industries, improving the technologies because of this multidisciplinary approach. And this is very, very unique, this diffusion between the sectors, matched with a lack of actual market understanding. And so our ecosystem has very much evolved to be very B2B. The way we thrive, and Eugene mentioned this very quickly before, we're not any kind of center. B2C models are challenging, though they exist. The way our market is structured is offering technologies and solutions that are based on other businesses' challenges, allowing them to offer their clients, their customers, their markets the value that can be created from these technologies. And you know, I was thinking of not presenting it, but we actually just saw, you know, Israel attracts probably the most venture capital per capita in the world. But when you look even in absolute terms, and I don't want to shame anyone, so I'm going to compare to Canada. Even in absolute terms, Israel is quite impressive when you compare such a small country to Canada. But not only is this investment, it's a very early stage ecosystem. And this is interesting because Eugene just updated me before this call that we've actually seen an interesting shift in the last 6 months. But overall, this ecosystem is very, very much focused on the early stage development of these technologies and ideas. The later stage funding comes in after, when these companies go out to different markets, start with market penetration. Those are the larger rounds. And that's when they kind of, in a sense, also leave our ecosystem and start working within the different markets. And what we're trying to do here is have more interaction between, of course, Israel and Latin America and the Caribbean regions. So in the last 6 months, just to kind of reference the COVID impact, we've actually seen larger rounds and a growth of 50% in the venture capital investments in Israel compared to 2019 in the same period, which is quite interesting. These are later stages. We see a surge in digital health, of course, all supporting the trend. So when we talk about the Israel ecosystem, just for you to understand, we're talking about a bit over 6,500 innovation-driven companies. Now, these are supported by a very vast ecosystem of knowledge creation, support, financing, all working together. And this is knowledge that we bring with us also to our partnership with the Inter-American Development Bank, and especially with IDB Lab, in bringing this knowledge, bringing these best practices to adapt them to the local markets. So to quickly summarize kind of the main points that I wanted to make in this context is, I hope that I've managed to convince you that Israel does have a very vibrant ecosystem and a reputation for such. But it really is based on the technological talent, very different to the Valley, for example, you know, where it's business people who are initiating these companies and technologies is the way to do that, is the how. Here, these are tech people initiating these solutions and then looking for the business challenge that they fit to. And of course, our small market. And that's why we see Israel as a perfect partner to any country, to any company, because we do not enjoy the value of this innovation. We cannot continue to innovate without these partnerships, without someone else enjoying the value of our work and of our efforts first. Only then do we get to enjoy some of that back in Israel. And that's also why Startup Nation Central was created. So Startup Nation Central, we are a nonprofit based in Tel Aviv with offices also in Jerusalem. Really founded with the inspiration of the book Startup Nation that came out over 10 years ago now. The idea was to help bridge that gap for such a small ecosystem that managed to create such a unique innovation cluster in Israel. We're here to strengthen that innovation cluster and connect it in the most long-term strategic way to other regions around the world. And so our activity is basically divided into three to quickly run through it. First and foremost, we are a data-driven organization. Everything is based on research and data. We collect and monitor everything that's happening in the market. We then leverage those insights to both strengthen the Israeli innovation ecosystem and connect that to the world. And in this context, one of the initial tools, and actually the initial reason for our partnership, was Startup Nation Finder, our platform that is actually provides and showcases what Israel has to offer, what companies are growing, what investment trends are happening, who are the partners that you can connect. And this is, in a sense, the infrastructure to our ecosystem. So from this, you know, with the COVID, the importance of such infrastructure has become much more substantial. And just to kind of reference Ana Maria's and Eugene's notes, the move to digitalization in any field has become critical. And that's why this infrastructure as well, allowing you, no matter where you are in the world, to go online, find a company, find a partnership, you'll be proactive about your work, is critical. And around the COVID, of course, we've leveraged all our infrastructure to follow these opportunities, to publish what are the companies that have pivoted during the crisis towards this. And all of this infrastructure has actually been connected into our partnership with IDB. So we've actually connected between the Finder platform and the Connect Americas platform to create that joint infrastructure. We've connected the COVID maps from the IDB, the different arms in IDB, to the COVID map from Israel, again, to help and solve. You know, my friends always tell me that I'm not a doctor, I shouldn't be working such hours. I finally actually feel like we have a true contribution to the future and what it'll look like. And bringing these technologies is actually critical in this time and age. And so we're building that infrastructure for partnership, that infrastructure for companies, both in Israel, and I invite companies in Israel and in the LAC region to be proactive, look for your partners, develop these business opportunities, because we're both connecting our infrastructure, but on that, we're also building a process and the trust and the partnership that Ana Maria and later on Irene will talk about to identify where digitalization is going to be critical. What are the processes for us to do this quickly and efficiently, implement solution, create business partnership, create joint ventures, whatever it may be. We're really working together in a very structured way. And the match between the different arms of IDB and IDB Lab that allows the earlier stage solutions from Israel to come in and complements that ability or that just structural challenge that we have in Israel, allowing this connection to happen. And so with that, I would like to reiterate how important these partnerships are going to be in our future as we move towards digitalization, and how important are the trust that we're building between the markets. And to kind of quickly summarize and call everyone to action, I truly invite you, and Fabrizio is gonna kind of double down on this, I hope, in the next presentation, to be proactive, reach out to us, reach out to IDB, reach out to IDB Lab, be proactive about creating these partnerships. We're here, we're looking to help facilitate these processes. And we've been doing this, and we're bringing our knowledge from our experience around the world, and we're bringing our knowledge from our experience with corporates to create this match between the challenges, the needs, and the change that we want to see happen on the ground. And with that, Fabrizio, I pass it on to you.
Thanks so much, Daniela, for your kind words. Thanks to the audience that is watching us from all around the world. And thanks again to Startup Nation Central for your energy, for your innovation, for your willingness to really bring our regions together. So Eugene, Daniela, and all your team, amazing work, and this is just the beginning. I lead the trade and integration sector at the Inter-American Development Bank, and we're all about more trade, more integration between our region and the rest of the world, and lowering and reducing those barriers, those costs, which are increasing the information costs and also digital costs. As Ana Maria said, the future is now, the future is digital, and trade is digital. And that's where we're working. That is what Outsource to LAC and all these things that we're doing are about. We have 77 speakers from all around the world, more than 4,000 registered entrepreneurs from 58 countries. As this session goes on, we have, I think, more than 600, and the messages keep coming on our screen from Nigeria, from Canada, from Ecuador, from Israel. It's, you know, it's really, really exciting. One cannot be not excited about this. And we're going to talk about a little bit about, you know, Connect Americas. Connect Americas is an online platform, a business-to-business platform, which is free. It's designed mainly for small and medium-sized enterprises that want to export, that want to find contacts around the world and internationalize their operations. It consists, on the one side, on an online social network, which is connectamericas.com. That is where the users can post and apply to purchasing announcements, access content in terms of learning, and even apply for financing. And then it's those face-to-face business matchmaking events, which of course have become fully virtual in this COVID era, which we're living, like Outsource to LAC, but there are many more, like the LAC flavors in the food sector, and like our series with different countries from around the world. And we also partner with third parties, with chambers of commerce from around the region and around the world, with trade promotion organizations. We are doing matchmaking events these days in Chile, in Colombia, in Brazil, in Mexico, and many others to come. So this is an ongoing, very dynamic process of connecting entrepreneurs, because if you set up the right ecosystem, the talent that the entrepreneurs have, the innovation and the creativity is there. Just put them together and many great things will happen. Right now, in terms of numbers, we have 7 million unique users in Connect Americas from 209 countries and territories from around the world. More than 420,000 business women and men which are registered in the platform. In sectors, of course, which are part of Outsource to LAC, which are technology, professional services, animation, video games, advertising, architecture, but also foods, textile, infrastructure. So it's really a very, very open platform in that sense. Users, and I mainly talk to the users from Israel that maybe are trying to find out more about Connect Americas. You can find clients, suppliers, partners. You can apply to purchasing announcements, both from companies and from governments in the region. You can take, of course, free online courses. And so it's really a discovery opportunity. And I want to talk about some specific examples because those, I think, always illustrate all these abstractions into the very specific. So talking about Israel and LAC and that potential. Cybersecurity, for example. Toka. Toka is an Israeli company that focuses on the cyber capacity building spectrum for government agencies. Toka has been selected by the government of Chile and the IDB to advise Chile on next steps for the country's national cybersecurity readiness and capacity building. This project, funded by the IDB, will strengthen Chile's cybersecurity capacities. In agricultural technology, and as you know, Latin America and the Caribbean, we feed the world. We have a lot of food reserves, and we are a powerhouse in agriculture. But Israel is a powerhouse in agricultural technology. Given its size, it has to do everything to feed its people. And in 2019, the Mexican industrial group Mexichem acquired 80% of Israeli company Nefatim, the world's largest provider of drip irrigation systems. Since then, it established an investment hub in Israel to scout for startup boasting technologies that address water scarcity and flooding. In connectivity, the Israeli company Gilat Satellite Networks was awarded a $153.6 million contract for 2 telecom infrastructure projects by Peru's Telecommunication Investment Fund in June 2018. In infrastructure, in May of 2018, Israeli water desalination company Fluence announced a plan with local partners to build a desalination plant for the town of San Quintin in Mexico. Look, I could continue for all afternoon, and I'm not going to, don't worry. But the opportunities are there for our SMEs, our entrepreneurs from Israel and Latin America to get together to do more business, to do more partnerships. As Ana Maria mentioned earlier, the LAC regional market is an exciting opportunity for Israeli companies, and Connect Americas can play, and Startup Nation, we can play a key role in this process. To facilitate the communication between the companies from Latin America and the Caribbean and the Israeli startups, a customized messaging system has been implemented. So this way, when a user visits an Israeli company profile in Connect Americas, which by the way, there are 5,112 Israeli companies registered in Connect Americas, thanks to all the hard work of Startup Nation Central and our team. So this way, when a user visits an Israeli company profile, they can contact them directly. This communication is being moderated by Startup Nation Central. So, everything is trustworthy. We operate in a very trustworthy ecosystem. And Israeli companies may as well contact LAC companies directly through Connect America's messaging system. So with that all said, we want you to be part of this party, part of this dance to the rhythm of rikudim, tango, or salsa, but we have to do it together. And to do, so we invite you to join us and be part of what we are launching today, which is an Israeli LAC community in Connect Americas. This is a place within Connect Americas which has a social and institutional identity, a set of values, and a shared vision. The community's identity provides a collaboration framework where companies, innovators, chambers of commerce, and the such can promote that networking. In terms of values, being a member of this community means engaging in reciprocal connecting and learning activities, being open to new business opportunities and perspectives and innovation. And our vision for this community is to offer the foundations to empower our members to build a dialogue sustainable into the future that will bring our regions closer together. So now that you know all this, the goal is to dance together, for everyone to win, for everyone to join connectamericas.com/Israel. That's where the community resides. And so with that, I pass it on to my colleague, the CEO of IDB Lab, Irene Arias, who's also going to mention wonderful opportunities between our regions. Thank you so much.
Muchas gracias. Thank you, Fabrizio, and thank you to our Startup Nation Central colleagues, and Eugene, Daniela, and to all of you for being present today from all over the world, the region and the world. Once every 3 years, Israel hosts the Agritech exhibition, one of the world's most important exhibitions in the field of agricultural technology. And I had the chance to be there in May 2018 for their 20th edition. So hearing a lot of what has been said and many mentions of agricultural technology and how the partnership between Israel's power in this with the capacity of Latin America and the Caribbean to feed the world, it kind of brought me back to that place in Tel Aviv, May 2018, discussing with so many partners. I remember in particular by the shore, talking to one of the participants, Ethie Levy, and just a few months after, she became actually a mentor of some of the most promising startups led by women in Latin America and the Caribbean through We Exchange, a platform that we have been running since 2013 to connect women entrepreneurs in STEM in Latin America and the Caribbean with mentors and investors from around the world. And that really tells you what we can do if we promote these connections. So this is why today I'd like to focus on 2 goals to complement what Ana Maria and Fabrizio had shared. 2 goals in terms of generating interest in Israeli startups to come to the Latin American, the Caribbean ecosystem, and encouraging LAC companies to open up to cutting edge technologies, because as Ana Maria said, the future is digital. So the process of digital transformation, but many corporates, and I apologize, homeschooling the kids here. So those are kind of two goals that bring us together here. And I'd like to leave you with three messages. One, that the Israel and LAC innovation ecosystems, especially at the, in terms of the growth of the Latin American ecosystem at the very earliest stage, which is sort of the focus of IDB Lab, are very complementary. So the collaboration is really strong. The collaboration has a lot of potential. LAC non-tech companies also have a lot of potential to collaborate with Israel and to really leverage the digital transformation and access to deep tech capabilities that it has. And I think Daniela expressed it perfectly well, why is that and how it's evolved. And for Israeli companies, LAC is a very untapped market in terms of innovative business models, market access, and tremendous impact. So this partnership is really supported and encouraged also by IDB Lab. For those who don't know it as well, IDB Lab is the innovation laboratory of the Inter-American Development Bank Group. And we are positioned to work in between the public and private sector and with civil society, and able to sandbox and invest for different types of actors and across verticals. So this unique position that within a multilateral institution, we have this space to take more risk and to generate a culture of innovation and not being afraid of failure. It's really important to promote innovation. So we want to bring it to the table in this partnership, but looking to creating market-driven solutions that can really have a systemic impact, not just point solutions that don't scale. So that's really, really important. How do we do it? The value proposition, as Ana Maria said at the beginning, is centered around providing financing, connections, and knowledge. In financing in particular, the mandate allows us to have a lot of flexibility to provide anything from grants to pure equity. And our active portfolio right now has 325 startups in which we have invested equity. And most important is doing it with other partners and doing it in collaboration in order to leverage our own funding. So more or less we mobilize around 3 times what we invest every year. In knowledge, it's 3 decades of existence of IDB Lab within the IDB group. And so then depending on the biggest challenges that the region has had over time, the innovation of IDB Lab has focused on different topics, but a lot has been done in terms of environmental sustainability, financial inclusion and remittances, future of work and skills, and of course, building the venture capital industry in the region. And in connections, of course, building together with other parts of the IDB group, these kind of communities and develop digital and physical platforms for the exchange of ideas and resources. A few numbers, through our presence in all the 26 countries of Latin America and the Caribbean, we have deployed over time a cumulative portfolio of $2 billion. This, together with this unique risk appetite, can help us be a good connector of global innovation to the local ecosystem. I think Eugene mentioned something very important. It's not just the technology and identifying exactly the problem that we need to solve for, but it's the adaptation to a business model that really works in the local context. So that's something that I think makes the combination of the strengths of Startup Nation Central and IDB Lab a place where we can make a lot of these connections and new business models happen. I will mention a few examples. On the financing side, we continuously look for those bigger challenges that, together with Ana Maria's team, seem to be the most pressing in the region, and then matching solutions that have not been tested before. So doing, in that sense, open innovation processes, prototype calls, and we also have developed a line of activity called Next Ventures to help also startups in Latin America and the Caribbean connect better with corporates that are in really an urgent need now of digital transformation. So helping them through that journey. On the financing side also, remember, well, Daniela mentioned those impressive figures of Israel. The size of the Latin American Caribbean venture capital market is the same, is actually smaller, and especially this year, than Israel for a region of 640 million people. But look at that as an opportunity where, because we are committed to mobilize many partners from around the world to grow that industry, and we know it deeply, we can really bring the financing that is required if you have the right idea and if you have the right team behind it. Examples of that is what we are seeing is happening like in both directions. Satellogic, for example, from Argentina, a leading company in nanosatellites, they have sought out capability in Israel to continue to grow. And in the other direction, we just invested in a venture capital fund called Cantera Capital, which is very much focused on education and digital health. And they have a presence in Israel precisely to be a bridge and invest in companies in Israel that can then come to the Latin American Caribbean market. I saw that there are people connected from all over the region, and I saw someone even from Sunchales in Argentina, and that's, for example, where CITES is. This is an accelerator and incubator of companies in biotech. Again, a great landing place for companies in Israel that want to test and expand and then grow their offering in Latin America and the Caribbean. And finally, on knowledge, again, back to the theme of agri-tech, it's been an area that IDB Lab has been investing in for many, many years, and doing in agri-tech a mapping of what's happening in agri-tech across the region over the last few years. And even though it's still small compared to what Israel has, it's quite ready for this kind of partnership and exchange. And it has really gone quite rapidly in the last few years. So there are a lot of opportunities. On connections, since I mentioned financing, knowledge, and finally on connections, we are in the process of doing the MVP for Kala, which will be a tool to connect startup founders with investors and startup founders with each other. It's a space that complements Connect Americas and that is missing in the region, which is quite fragmented. So we look forward to building that bridge also with the Global Finder from there. One final example that is, I think, the most relevant probably for what is in everybody's minds today with the health crisis, and it's Bina AI from Israel that has developed a great capability and functionalities for monitoring vital signals from a phone, has partnered up with Salud UI, Uruguay's digital health initiative, to integrate this technology into coronavirus UI, which is Uruguay's digital platform to manage the pandemic. Isn't that powerful? And this actually came up when we did a prototype call. Within a week, we had 500 amazing proposals from the innovation ecosystem just to related to the health needs. And this was one of the proposals that got selected. And basically finding that opportunity, matching them, and then creating a business model that is adapted to the local context, financing the prototype, and creating the conditions to scale with our colleagues on the public side of the social sector that are going to be monitoring and evaluating the results of this prototype to be ready to scale it, is, I think, a good model to understand how we operate and what we do. So I'll leave you with that message, a call to action to say, do reach out. I think SNC will have one-on-ones during the virtual summit, and they will connect back to us. So LAC is an untapped source of innovative business models, of market access, and tremendous impact, especially in this space of early stage. So we welcome Israeli companies that are interested in joining us. Thanks again.
Thank you, Irene. And we have received several questions from the audience, so I will start asking some of them. If I may, I will start with Eugene. So Eugene, Israeli startups are born global. For some of the startups in Latin America that come from smaller markets, what are some of the key lessons learned in your work with Israeli entrepreneurs that you think might be useful to Latin American and Caribbean companies?
First of all, Israeli startup ecosystem was not born global. I mean, it was born from addressing its own needs. It's for many, many years, Israeli companies were looking for innovative solutions so that the country can survive. And so that's where our strength comes from. It's only in the last 25, maybe 30 years, we've started sort of expanding and looking at other people's challenges to address them with the technology that developed to address ours. I mean, we did help other countries since the 50s in addressing the same problems that we faced, but it's only maybe since the mid-90s that the Israeli companies started being born looking outside. So that is an evolutionary process, and it sort of itself stems from necessity, because we basically never had a local market, neither in Israel because of the size, but also around Israel because of you know, with the geopolitical stuff, which is changing, but still problematic. And so I think that for LAC countries, even small countries, even though you don't have local market, you do have a very large market near you that in most cases speaks the same language and has sort of similar cultures. And so what I would do is I would first try to address local challenges, because the markets, like Ana Maria mentioned, it's a $6 trillion market around you. We didn't have and don't have this luxury. But at the same time, becoming much more fluent and much more comfortable in English and in you know, world business practices, which many businesses in LAC, which we host, we see that they completely cosmopolitan and they multinational. That is something that is going to be helpful in really scaling up, because the scale up, especially in higher technology, deeper technology, is usually happening worldwide rather than in your local markets. So I would leave you with those two insights if they any help.
They are. Thank you so much. Moving on to Daniela, and I think this question is special for you because we are working together on a session on AgTech for next week, so it's a good amuse-bouche, if you will. What would be your recommendation for LAC countries for strengthening their knowledge of the AgTech technologies that Israel is pushing the envelope on?
Oh, wow. So if you actually visit our booth or the session, we've published some of the maps that we create. We're constantly mapping the Israeli landscape, and AgTech is no different. And we create these maps and deeper dives, so reports that can all be found and referenced to in the booth on this conference, and of course, you can reach out to us as much as possible. I would always invite you to explore in the Connect Americas platform, and if you want more information about the companies also, from there you can reach the Finder platform. To play around with the different tags, it depends what you're looking for in agriculture. The solutions are, there's a variety of solutions, from alternative proteins to digitalization of systems, smart farming, use of drones. It really depends, and the way things are built, it really allows you to play around with it almost like a game to find out what there is and what can be relevant for your needs.
Wonderful, thank you. And just to plug for next week's session, also on Tuesday, we'll have a session specifically on AgTech that we have worked in partnership with Startup Nation Central. We have fantastic speakers, and the session should be super interesting as well. Thank you for that, Daniela. Perfect. So moving on to Irene, if you will, you spoke of several very interesting examples of collaborations between you know, LAC startups and Israeli startups. In your experience, what are some of the elements from the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Israel that you think, that you find most inspiring for LAC entrepreneurs?
Well, that's a broad but a great question. So perhaps is what Daniela was mentioning in terms of the complementarities of the two, of Latin America, the Caribbean, and Israel, in the sense that we know the problems, we have the pulse of what society really is struggling with, and especially in our case, our focus at IDB Lab is improving the conditions of poor and vulnerable population, and really improving the reach and the services, the quality, that lower the cost of certain basic services, which now, by the way, include connectivity, as Ana Maria mentioned, with the deep tech tradition and capability that Israel has, and also a very pragmatic approach, and learning, and this is quite important in terms of the cultural part, learning from the mindset of Israeli entrepreneurs, of really not being afraid of failure, and testing things and going and having gone through multiple ideas and becoming some having like role models that then support the next generation. So that's quite inspiring, and it is something that through our network we exchange in particular for women entrepreneurs in STEM, but also all the other entrepreneurs that are connected to the more than 2,000 partners we have in incubators, accelerators, in company builders that can help us create that same mindset in Latin America and the Caribbean, and get inspired by these stories that also have an ingredient that I think is extremely important for entrepreneurs in Latin America and the Caribbean, which is that they normally start thinking with a global mindset of, my solution is going to tackle the problem that affects many, many people, and I'm going to think global from the start. And this is something that we're seeing more and more from Latin American entrepreneurs, and where I think what we've lived over the last few months, where I saw that there were several people connected from Ecuador, and there are 2 entrepreneurs in Ecuador that were extremely good at geospatial technologies and AI and machine learning, and they had been applying it for their own endeavor. In fact, they were Endeavor entrepreneurs from the Endeavor network. And when they saw the crisis, they put together a proposal that was one of the prototypes that we funded to put that experience at the service of the pandemic, and in particular to develop a contact tracing tool with the Ministry of Health. Again, the type of collaboration that being at IDB, us from IDB Lab working with the entrepreneurs and our colleagues on the social sector working with the government, we could make possible. And they have thought of their solution with a global mindset from the beginning. And now we're looking to see what could complement the solution that they've developed with other technologies from Israel, like the one I mentioned that is starting in Uruguay, BINA, but if it works, it could definitely be complementing the experience that we are supporting in Ecuador, which is called ASI Ecuador. So those are, I hope, some examples and some of the things that inspire us and that we hope are useful. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Ana Maria. To Fabricio. I'm so sorry, Irene. I'm so very sorry. On to Fabricio. One question for you, Fabricio, is what are some of the what would be the best way of contacting Israeli companies to explore ventures? Is there a governmental organization, chambers, like practically what would be the best way for the LAC companies to contact them?
Sure, a great question. As we said before, www.connectamericas.com is where more than 5,112 Israeli companies are already there with their profiles. So you go to the platform, you hit on the left side if you want to discriminate by country and by sector. So it can be technology and services and Israel, or it can be infrastructure or other sectors. And there you can start messaging directly, contacting those companies. The company profile is there, the name of the person, the email, and all the contact information. Startup Nation Central is the institution which we have partnered with, and you heard a lot about in this panel, in order to make sure that information flows well, flows adequately with the adequate moderation. At the same time, we're building a community, and a bilateral community in which is sort of a collective community where people can, and entrepreneurs can post announcements and opportunities and interest. And that is www.connectamericas.com/Israel. So those are some of the ways you can do it. Of course, we're integrated with Startup Nation Central. So then it's all the services that SNC offers, the Finder and all the very, very valuable information. This is a very unique opportunity. This is not something that has been done before. So we really want to, I think the sheer number of the participants, Eugene at the beginning said more than 500. At some point it was 650. And I think right now it's like 630, and people are there and interested. They can watch this session again later on tonight or in the following days, and they can get back to us. IDB, Startup Nation Central, Connect Americas, we're there to help you and help you internationalize your business.
Thank you so much, Fabricio. And I believe we might be out of time. I know that all of your time is very valuable, and the last thing we want is to keep you behind. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you to Ana Maria as well, which I believe has been having some technical difficulties, so apologies for that. But we really enjoyed our session today. Thank you again to all of our audience. Please make sure that you visit the booth for SNC in o2legvirtual.com. You'll find more information about Startup Nation Central there, and you'll see several documents that will be relevant to what was shared today as well. And don't forget that we have a session today at 3 p.m. Eastern time on e-commerce, which should be super interesting as well. So thank you so much for your time, everyone. Have a great rest of your day.
Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Gracias.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.